Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and share. In the description of this video, you can find my compiled link. Through there, you can find ways to support the channel, my other social media, and more. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. We're doing a first thoughts today. This first thoughts is on the Peregrine Dynamo. 3-mana colorless commander. Actually a colorless commander too. Really cool. It's got haste, pay 1, tap it, copy target activated or triggered ability of a legendary source you control that's not a commander. Seems cool. There's some very interesting stuff you can do with this in the command zone and both in the 99. So I'm going to be talking about both of those things. First of all, the categories I'm going to talk about are cards that work well in the Peregrine Dynamo deck. So if you have Peregrine Dynamo as your commander, these are cards that are going to work well with it. Ways to untap Peregrine Dynamo. Some artifact synergy cards. Some cool ways to just win the game using Peregrine Dynamo. Then we have some one-off cards, and then in the 99, I got a lot of commanders I want to mention for in the 99. First, we're going to be talking about cards that work well with Peregrine Dynamo, as in cards that have activated or triggered abilities that you can copy with the Peregrine Dynamo for profit. I want to mention some Planeswalkers. We have all the Karns and all the Ugins. Those seem great for this deck because you can copy the loyalty abilities. And there's also some cards that work pretty well, like Luxior and the Chain Veil with those Planeswalkers, specifically the Chain Veil, because you can copy the Chain Veil's ability when you activate it, so you can do all of your Planeswalkers 3 times in a turn. That seems pretty sweet. So if you want to go like kind of like a colorless Super Friends deck, that could be a cool way to do it. But there's just not a lot of colorless Planeswalkers, not a lot of support there, so it's going to be more of a you include the Planeswalkers because they work well in the deck, and the Chain Veil is just going to synergize really well, so why not just throw it in. Otherwise, some other legendary cards that work well in this deck for triggered or activated abilities that you can copy include Azor's Gateway, being able to let you flip it faster. I have Ugin, tutor twice, seems good. I have Vecna, you can copy its triggered ability to draw extra cards. Gaia Reach Sanitarium is an interesting one on a land. You have Gonti's Aether Heart, which could give you multiple turns, which is really nice. Gila Vault, if you build a deck to generate a lot of mana, this card could put in a ton of work for you. Inventor's Fair, another one to let you tutor stuff out. Nikokoro is another land that lets you draw cards, which is going to be important because you're in colorless, so card draw sources are going to be kind of slim. Mindslaver seems amazing in this deck, being able to steal 2 players' turns. I love that. That seems super fun. The Mirari, copy your instants and sorceries. Why not? The only problem with the Mirari is that there's not a ton of good colorless instant and sorceries, so it may not be too useful in a deck, but I figured I'd mention it because it seems pretty decent if you go that route. Planar Bridge can let you bring stuff from your deck into play. Sky Sovereign Console Flagship is removal. It's removal that you can copy, so you can kill 2 things with it. That seems pretty fantastic. Sword of the Animist, great way to ramp. You can copy that, get 2 lands. Deck of Many Things just seems pretty funny, and it will work pretty well with the commander. Thran Temporal Gateway, you're going to be running a lot of legendary stuff and historic stuff because artifacts. So this can just let you dump stuff into play that's heavy, that's high mana value. Seems worthwhile. And the Weatherlight, just good card advantage card that you can copy the trigger of. Also, Eldrazi Titans seem really good, being Emrakul, Kozilek Butcher of Truth, and both the Ulamogs, because these all have cast triggers or triggered abilities when they attack, and being able to copy those triggers seems very powerful. Those could be very fun to include in this deck. But you're definitely going to want to run a lot of ramp in this deck, specifically artifact ramp, so that way you can just get these big things into play faster. And the artifacts will synergize with a lot of other cards I'm going to be mentioning. Next, we're going to talk about ways to untap the Peregrine Dynamo, so that way you can activate it more than once. So you can copy an ability 3 times or 5 times, however many times you want to. Clock of Omens, pretty decent, especially if you're going heavy in artifacts. Galvanic Key, because Peregrine Dynamo is an artifact creature. Perfect. Jandor's Saddlebags, Mage Right Stone, Manifold Key, Petrier's Seal, which is also nice because it's a mana rock. Puppet Strings, 1000-Year Elixir, Unwinding Clock. This one's fantastic, especially if you can do stuff with other artifacts that you control. So you're tapping an artifact during your turn, tapping Peregrine Dynamo to copy whatever ability you just activated, untap them both during your opponent's turn and do the same thing. If you have mana rocks, being able to pay for it, that's awesome. Seems like a really, really synergistic card in this deck. Probably one of the best cards you could put into this deck. Voltaic Key is just another good untapper. And Voltaic Construct. Really, really cool if you have a lot of mana. Just being able to dump mana into untapping because it doesn't require you to tap to untap something. Seems pretty good. Next, we're going to talk about some additional artifact synergy cards. Mystic Forge seems pretty decent. Foundry Inspector to make your stuff cost less. Same thing with Cloud Key and Semblance Anvil. Then Shimmermere, so you can cast stuff at instant speed. All that seems very powerful in this deck. Now I've got a couple of locks that I want to talk about. Some ways to actually close out the game or win the game. These seem pretty sweet, and I really like the idea of this. You have a Mindslaver lock, so you can just take everyone's turns. Seems good. You can use Scarecrow, Conqueror's Galleon, and Untappers, along with Mindslaver, so that way you can just take a bunch of turns all at once if you have a lot of mana, by sacrificing Mindslaver, copying the ability a couple of times if possible, and then using Scarecrow to bring it back into play, or Conqueror's Galleon to bring it back. You could also use Scarecrow, Unwinding Clock, and Artifact Ramp, so that way you can, beginning of each player's turn, you sacrifice Mindslaver to take the next person's turn and bring it back with Scarecrow. During that next player's turn, you untap your stuff with Unwinding Clock, and then you get to do it again to the person after it, so that way you don't need as much mana. It saves you a lot of extra resources, but you do need that Unwinding Clock to make that work really well. That seems hilarious and awesome and a good way to win the game. Your opponent's just going to scoop. They're not going to want to play a game where you're taking every single turn. Another way you can do this is to take every turn for yourself using Ugin's Nexus. This seems fantastic. Using Ugin's Nexus, a way to sacrifice it, and Karn, the Great Creator, to bring it back from exile. And then you just use the Peregrine Dynamo to copy the ability a couple times, so that way you can tick up Karn to take it down, to bring it back during your extra turns, and then play it, sack it, get more extra turns over and over and over. Boom, you win the game. So you can either take your opponent's turns or yourself take extra turns. Either way, those are good ways to win the game. Some other one-off cards I wanted to mention are Forsaken Monument, Blinkmoth Urn, and Allah's Dust. Those are going to be fantastic in an artifact-heavy, colorless deck. Lithoform Engine, Rings of Brighthearth, and Illusionist Bracers will let you copy the ability again, which is nice. Also, Lithoform Engine is legendary, so let's say you activate Lithoform Engine to copy a creature spell you're casting. You can then use the Peregrine Dynamo to copy that activated ability to get another copy of that creature. Really interesting there. Also, since you're going to be colorless, there's some interesting cards that just work pretty well in this deck, including Wandering Archaic, Platinum Angel, Void Winnower, Blightsteel Colossus is fantastic, and Trading Post. Those are all just colorless cards that I think in a colorless deck can perform very well. And since you're going to be going very heavy on legendaries, Untakade and Honor-Worn Shaku could both put in tons of work in this deck and provide you a lot of extra mana. Now we're just on to In the 99. So, this is Colorless Commander. It's a colorless card. It can go into any deck. But there's only certain decks that would really want this effect because you're copying legendary activated and triggered abilities. You can't copy it from your commander though. So you're going to want to be in decks with a lot of legends. So like Legendary Tribal, stuff like that, it seems really good in. It seems great in Goshen Tai because shrines are all legendary. You just can't copy the Goshen Tai of Life's Origin trigger, but you can do any of the other ones. Either of the Captain Sisseys seem fantastic for this. You have Kethis. Dragons tend to be legendary. A lot of the good dragons are legendary, so the Dragon would probably like this card. Reki, of course, would like this card. Esika, there's Kolvori, Arvad, and Nyambi. All of those seem like they would enjoy this card in their deck. I think it's a pretty cool card. There's definitely other decks out there that want this effect, decks that are very heavy on legendary cards, but these are just the commanders that I could find off the top of my head that seem like they'd really want it, and I know most of those builds would probably want to try to find a spot for this. That is everything I have for the Peregrine Dynamo. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Peace out, everybody.